Quan Ho stood in the cold metal corridor of the military starship. His uniform had been stripped of all badges and medals. 20 years of service meant nothing now. The other soldiers looked away as he passed. Some had fought beside him. Some had called him friend. Now they pretended he did not exist. Commander Hee-jin waited at the airlock. Her face showed no emotion. She held a datapad in her hands. She read from it in a flat voice that echoed off the walls. Quan Ho, former captain of the 3rd Defense Fleet, you are found guilty of disobeying direct orders. You abandoned your post. You refused to follow protocol. The sentence is exile. You will be transported to the moon Talvros. You will remain there for the rest of your natural life. Quan Ho said nothing. He knew this would happen. 3 weeks ago, the Krell attacked Colony 7. The command had been clear. Evacuate military personnel only. Leave the civilians behind. There was not enough time to save everyone. The ships could only carry so many people. He had refused that order. While other ships departed with soldiers and officers, Quan Ho had taken his small transport vessel back to the colony. He filled it with children and families. He made 3 trips. He saved 247 people. By the time command noticed, it was too late to stop him. The Krell destroyed Colony 7. Every civilian left behind had died. But those 247 people lived because of Quan Ho. They lived because one soldier decided that orders could be wrong. Do you have anything to say? Hee-jin asked. Her voice was still flat, but something flickered in her eyes. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was respect. Quan Ho would never know. No, Commander, he said quietly. Then step into the transport pod. Quan Ho walked forward. The airlock door hissed open. Inside was a small pod barely big enough for one person. It contained a week of food rations, a thermal suit, and a basic survival kit. Nothing else. The Empire did not waste resources on exiles. He stepped inside. The door sealed behind him. Through the small window, he saw Hee-jin turn and walk away. The other soldiers dispersed. In moments, he was alone. The pod detached from the starship with a gentle thud. Thrusters fired. Quan Ho felt the acceleration push him back against the seat. Through the window, he watched the massive military vessel grow smaller. Soon it was just a point of light among millions of stars. Then it jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished completely. The journey to Talvros took 6 days. The pod was automated. It could not be controlled from inside. Quan Ho sat in the cramped space and thought about his choices. He did not regret them. Those families were alive. Their children would grow up. They would have futures. That mattered more than his freedom. On the 6th day, Talvros appeared in the window. It was a small moon orbiting a gas giant. The surface was covered in ice and rock. Frozen mountains rose like jagged teeth. Deep valleys cut through the landscape. There was no vegetation. No water except frozen ice. The atmosphere was thin but breathable. Humans could survive here, but they could not thrive. The pod entered the atmosphere. Fire bloomed around it as friction heated the hull. Quan Ho gripped the armrests as the pod shook violently. Then parachutes deployed. The descent slowed. With a hard impact that rattled his bones, the pod hit the surface. Silence. Quan Ho waited for a moment. Then he hit the release button. The door hissed open. Cold air rushed in. It stung his lungs. He grabbed his supplies and stepped out onto the ice. The landscape stretched before him in every direction. White and gray and empty. The sky above was a pale purple color. The gas giant hung on the horizon like a massive painting. It was beautiful in a harsh, lonely way. Quan Ho activated his thermal suit. Warmth spread through the fabric. He checked his supplies. 1 week of food. A small tent, a water purifier that could melt ice, a basic toolkit, a flare gun with 3 flares, and 1 small scanner that could detect heat signatures and radiation. He was alone on a frozen moon with almost nothing. Most people would have felt despair. Quan Ho felt determination. He was a soldier. He had survived worse. He would survive this. He walked for 2 hours before he found the caves. They were nestled in the side of a mountain. The entrance was wide enough for a person to enter. Inside, the walls were made of a strange crystalline rock that glowed faintly. The glow provided just enough light to see. Quan Ho explored deeper. The cave system was extensive. Tunnels branched in many directions. Some led to dead ends. Others opened into larger chambers. In one chamber, he found a natural hot spring. Steam rose from the water. The cave walls here were warm to the touch. This would be his home. He set up his tent near the hot spring. The warmth from the water kept the temperature comfortable. He melted ice for drinking water. He rationed his food carefully. 1 meal per day. It would last longer that way. Days passed into weeks. Quan Ho established a routine. He explored the caves during the warmest part of the day. He marked paths so he would not get lost. He searched for anything useful. Sometimes he found mineral deposits. Sometimes he found ice formations that were almost beautiful. On his 73rd day of exile, he found the nest. He had been exploring a tunnel he had not entered before. It descended deeper into the mountain. The crystalline walls here glowed brighter. The air grew warmer. Quan Ho followed the tunnel for nearly an hour. Then it opened into a massive chamber. The chamber was circular and enormous. The ceiling rose high above, disappearing into darkness. But it was what lay in the center that made Quan Ho stop and stare. A nest. Huge and circular. Made of the same crystalline material as the cave walls. And inside the nest were eggs. 5 of them. Each egg was the size of a grown human. They were smooth and white with veins of gold running through them. They glowed softly with inner light. Quan Ho approached slowly. He had seen images of dragon eggs in historical archives. Everyone had. Dragons were supposed to be extinct. Humanity had expanded across the stars 200 years ago. In that expansion, dragons had been pushed out. Their worlds had been colonized. Their nests had been destroyed. The last confirmed dragon sighting had been 70 years ago. Yet here were dragon eggs, living, waiting to hatch. Quan Ho walked around the nest. He looked for the mother. Dragons never left their eggs unguarded. But the chamber was empty. No sign of an adult dragon. No sign of recent activity except for the eggs themselves. He touched one egg gently. It was warm. He could feel a faint vibration inside, a heartbeat. These eggs were alive and healthy. But they were abandoned. Quan Ho stood in the silent chamber and made a decision. He did not think about it for long. Some choices are obvious when you have lived a life of service and sacrifice. The Empire had thrown him away. His own people had exiled him for saving lives. He owed humanity nothing anymore. But these eggs were innocent. These unborn dragons deserved a chance to live. They deserved a guardian. He returned to his shelter and gathered his supplies. He moved everything to the chamber with the nest. He set up his tent beside the crystalline structure. He positioned himself between the eggs and the entrance tunnel. Quan Ho, former captain of the 3rd Defense Fleet, became something new that day. He became a guardian of dragons. He did not know if the eggs would hatch. He did not know if he could protect them if danger came. He only knew that he would try. Outside the cave, wind howled across the frozen moon. Inside, a human exile sat beside the nest and began his watch. He did not know that this choice would change the galaxy. He did not know that his name would become legend. He only knew that someone had to stand guard. And he was the only one there. This exile was better than she expected. He was using the environment like a master. Ever 17 days. Quan Ho had held the cave for 17 days against professional soldiers with superior weapons and equipment. He was exhausted. His body was covered in bruises from falls and near misses. His hands were cut and bleeding from handling sharp crystal rocks. His food was gone. He survived on fungus and water. Sleep came in short bursts of an hour or two, but he was still fighting. The soldiers had tried everything. Direct assaults, flanking maneuvers through other tunnels, even attempts to negotiate. Quan Ho refused every offer. He would not leave the eggs. He could not. Yuna had lost 5 soldiers to injuries. None killed, but all hurt badly enough to need evacuation. Her team was down to 7, including herself. The mining company was getting impatient. They were paying for security and seeing no results. Pressure was mounting for her to end this. On the morning of the 18th day, Yuna made her decision. No more careful approaches. No more trying to minimize damage to the cave system. They would use overwhelming force. They would blast through Quan Ho's defenses and end this siege. She gathered her remaining 6 soldiers. They loaded their weapons with full charges. They packed plasma grenades. They carried breaching charges for the blocked tunnels. This would be the final assault. Inside the cave, Quan Ho knew something was different. The soldiers had been quiet all morning. No probing attacks, no attempts to enter, just silence. He checked his scanner. All 7 heat signatures were gathered at the main entrance. Preparing for something big, he moved to the egg chamber. All 5 eggs now showed cracks. The dragons inside were ready. They were just waiting for the right moment. Quan Ho wished that moment would come sooner. If the dragons hatched, maybe the soldiers would stop. Maybe they would see the value of these lives. But wishes meant nothing. Reality was what mattered. Quan Ho positioned himself in the tunnel between the entrance and the egg chamber. It was the narrowest point. A natural choke point. If they came through, they would have to come through here. He gathered his remaining crystal shards. He had maybe 20 pieces sharp enough to use as weapons. Against plasma rifles and grenades, they were almost nothing. But almost nothing was better than nothing at all. The assault began with an explosion. The soldiers used breaching charges on the collapsed tunnel near the entrance. The blast shook the entire cave system. Dust and debris filled the air. Quan Ho covered his ears as the sound echoed and re-echoed through the passages. When the dust settled, the tunnel was open again. The soldiers poured through. They moved fast and coordinated. They had spent 17 days learning this cave system. They knew where the traps were. They knew the layout. Quan Ho triggered his first defensive measure, a carefully balanced pile of rocks that would collapse the tunnel behind the soldiers. It worked partially. 3 soldiers made it through before the tunnel collapsed. 4 others were cut off, including Yuna. 3 against 1 in the narrow tunnels. The soldiers advanced carefully. They used their armor and shields. They fired plasma bolts at every shadow. The cave walls glowed and melted where the bolts hit. Quan Ho fought like a man with everything to lose. Because he was. He used the darkness. He used his knowledge of every twist and turn. He threw his crystal shards from hiding spots. 1 hit a soldier in the visor, cracking it. The soldier fell back, temporarily blinded. 2 left. They were more careful now. They advanced slowly. Back to back. Covering each other. Professional and experienced. Quan Ho could not get close without being seen. Then a plasma grenade sailed through the air. It bounced off a wall and landed near Quan Ho's position. He threw himself backward as it exploded. The blast wave picked him up and slammed him into the crystalline wall. He felt ribs crack. Pain exploded through his chest. He tried to stand, but his left leg would not support his weight. Something was wrong with his knee. Torn or broken, he dragged himself deeper into the tunnel, leaving a trail of blood on the glowing floor. The 2 soldiers rounded the corner. They saw him crawling away. They raised their weapons. This was the end, and everyone knew it. "Stop," one of them said. His voice was amplified through his helmet speaker. "Stop moving. It is over." Quan Ho kept crawling. Toward the egg chamber. "Just a little further." I said stop. A plasma bolt hit the wall next to Quan Ho's head. The heat seared his skin. The message was clear. The next one would not miss. Quan Ho stopped crawling. He rolled onto his back. He looked up at the 2 soldiers standing over him. He could not see their faces behind their helmets. They were just anonymous shapes. Tools of the corporation, following orders, just like he had once followed orders. "There are eggs," Quan Ho said. His voice was weak. Blood filled his mouth. "Just ahead. Dragon eggs. They are about to hatch. Please, let them live." "Our orders are to secure the site," the first soldier said. "Not to protect wildlife. They are not wildlife. They are intelligent. They are the last dragons, please." The second soldier looked toward the egg chamber. "I want to see them." "The eggs. Our orders are clear, I know, but I want to see what this guy has been protecting, what he has been willing to die for." They moved forward, keeping their weapons trained on Quan Ho. He dragged himself along behind them. Every movement sent pain through his broken ribs. His leg left a smear of blood on the cave floor. The egg chamber opened before them. The 2 soldiers stopped and stared. Even through their helmets, Quan Ho could hear them gasp. The 5 eggs glowed like captured stars. The golden veins pulsed with light. The cracks had spread across every shell. From inside came sounds. "Clear now," chirping and clicking. The dragons were singing. They were ready to be born. "By all the stars," the second soldier whispered. The first soldier activated his comm. "Captain Yuna, we have reached the primary chamber. The exile is secured, but you need to see this." While they waited for Yuna and the others to find another route, Quan Ho pulled himself to the nest. He placed his hand on the nearest egg. It was hot to the touch. The dragon inside pushed against his palm. It knew he was there. It recognized him somehow. "I am sorry," Quan Ho whispered. I tried to protect you." Outside the chamber, more explosions echoed. Yuna and her team were blasting through the collapsed tunnel. It would take them maybe 10 minutes to reach the chamber. The first soldier stood by the entrance, weapon ready. The second soldier had lowered his rifle. He was staring at the eggs with something like wonder on his face, visible now that he had raised his visor. "How long have you been guarding them?" the second soldier asked. 6 months, Kwanho said. "Since I found them." "Why?" "Because someone had to. Because they deserve to live. Because humanity has taken enough from the universe. Maybe it is time we gave something back." The soldier was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My name is Taiwan. I have a daughter. She is 5. She loves stories about dragons. I tell her they are just myths. But here they are, real. What is your daughter's name?" "Jiwan. She asks me every day what I did at work. I never have anything good to tell her. Just boring security jobs. But today I could tell her I saw dragon eggs. Real dragons. That would make her so happy." "Taiwan, check the perimeter," the first soldier snapped. "Stop talking to the exile." Taiwan lowered his visor again. He moved to stand by the entrance. But he looked back at the eggs one more time. Minutes passed. Kwanho's vision was starting to blur. He had lost too much blood. His breathing was shallow. Each breath sent pain through his broken ribs. He knew he was dying. He had known it since the grenade blast. He just wanted to last long enough to see the eggs safe, but they would not be safe. Yuna would follow her orders. The corporation wanted the mining site. The eggs were just obstacles. They would be destroyed. The sound of footsteps echoed from the tunnel. Yuna and her team arrived. She stepped into the chamber and froze. Even her professional composure cracked when she saw the eggs. "They are real," she said softly. "Yes," Kwanho said. His voice was barely a whisper now. "Please, let them live." "I am begging you." Yuna looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the blood, the broken body, the desperate determination in his eyes. She had spent 17 days fighting this man. She had seen his courage, his skill, his absolute refusal to give up. "I have my orders," she said. "Orders can be wrong. You know that. Deep down you know that." Yuna stood in silence. Around her soldiers waited. Taiwan shifted uncomfortably. The first soldier kept his weapon ready. Everyone waited to see what the captain would decide. Then one of the eggs moved. Not just the dragon inside. The whole egg rocked. A crack spread across the shell with a sound like breaking glass. A piece of shell fell away. Something golden and bright poked through. A snout, small and delicate. Then an eye opened. It was huge and luminous. It looked directly at Kwanho. The dragon saw its guardian, broken and bleeding, dying to protect it. The dragon began to push harder against the shell. It was trying to hatch, trying to be born, trying to enter a universe that had tried to wipe out its entire species. Kwanho reached out with his last strength. He touched the dragon's snout through the hole in the shell. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a purr. "It was warm and alive, please," Kwanho said one last time. Then his eyes closed. His hand fell away from the egg. His breathing stopped in the sudi. 6 months passed in the cave. Kwanho learned to live with silence. He measured time by the glow cycles of the crystalline walls. They brightened and dimmed in a pattern that roughly matched a 24-hour day. He kept himself busy. He explored more of the cave system. He found fungus growing in damp corners that was actually edible. It tasted awful, but it kept him alive when his rations finally ran out. The eggs changed slowly. The golden veins grew brighter. Sometimes he heard sounds from inside them, soft chirping noises, movement. The dragons inside were growing. They were getting ready to hatch. Kwanho did not know how long dragon eggs took to hatch. He had no way to research it. He simply waited and watched. He talked to the eggs sometimes. It made him feel less alone. He told them about his life, about the colonies he had protected, about the people he had saved, about the choice that had brought him here. The eggs seemed to pulse brighter when he spoke. Maybe it was his imagination. Maybe not. On the morning of his 192nd day, his scanner beeped. It was the first sound it had made since he arrived. Kwanho grabbed it and checked the display. 3 heat signatures, approaching from the east. Moving fast, he felt his heart rate increase. After 6 months alone, other humans were here. But why? Talvros was supposed to be an exile moon. Ships only came to drop off prisoners. They never stayed. They never explored. Kwanho moved to the cave entrance. He took his flare gun. It was the only weapon he had. He climbed up the mountain slope and found a position behind rocks. From here he could see the ice plains below. 3 figures appeared. They wore environmental suits. They carried equipment. As they got closer, Quan Ho could see scanning devices and drilling tools. These were not soldiers. They were surveyors. The lead surveyor stopped and pointed at the mountain. The others spread out. They were scanning the rock, looking for something. Minerals, probably. Mining companies were always looking for new resource deposits. Quan Ho climbed down and intercepted them before they reached the cave entrance. He stepped out from behind a rock formation. The 3 surveyors jumped in surprise. One of them reached for something at his belt. Probably a weapon. Stop, Quan Ho said. His voice was rough from months of barely using it. This area is occupied. The lead surveyor stepped forward. His nameplate said Dongsu. He was young, maybe 30. He looked at Quan Ho with confusion and then amusement. Occupied? By who, you? Dongsu laughed. You are in exile. You have no rights here. We have a legal permit from the mining guild. This moon is open for resource extraction. I am asking you to choose a different site, Quan Ho said calmly. There are important things in this mountain. Things that should not be disturbed. Important things? Dongsu pulled out his scanner and checked it. Our readings show rich deposits of crystalline ore. Very valuable, very rare. Whatever you think is important does not matter. We are filing a claim on this site. Please, Quan Ho said. I'm not asking for myself. There are lives at stake. Choose another mountain. There are thousands of them. Dongsu's expression hardened. You are in exile. You do not get to make demands. Stay out of our way or I will report you for interfering with legal operations. The surveyors walked past him. They began setting up equipment at the base of the mountain. Quan Ho watched them work. His mind raced. If they drilled into the mountain, they would eventually find the chamber. They would find the eggs. Mining companies did not care about dragon eggs. They would destroy them without hesitation. Quan Ho returned to the cave. He checked on the eggs. They were still safe, still glowing, still alive. He sat down and tried to think. He had no weapons, no way to call for help, no authority. He was just one man against a mining corporation. 4 days later, a ship landed near the mountain. It was not a survey vessel. It was a security transport. 12 armed soldiers emerged. They wore combat armor. They carried plasma rifles. At their head was a woman with captain insignia. Her nameplate read Yuna. Quan Ho watched from the cave entrance. Dongsu met the security team. They talked for a few minutes. Dongsu pointed at the mountain, at the cave entrance, at Quan Ho's position. Yuna looked up at the cave. Even from a distance, Quan Ho could see her eyes were cold and professional. She had the look of someone who followed orders without question, someone who did what was necessary without caring about the consequences. The security team advanced up the mountain. They moved in formation, professional, experienced. These were not corporate rent-a-cops. These were real soldiers, probably former military like Quan Ho himself. Quan Ho stepped out where they could see him. He held no weapon. He raised his hands to show he was not a threat. The soldiers surrounded him quickly. Plasma rifles pointed at his chest. Yuna approached. She looked him up and down. You are the exile causing problems for the survey team. I am asking you to leave this site alone, Quan Ho said. There are dragon eggs in this mountain. Living eggs. The last of their kind. If you mine here, you will kill them. Yuna's expression did not change. Dragon eggs. That is your story? It is the truth. I can show you. Even if it is true, it does not matter. Dragons have no legal protection. They are classified as extinct. The mining rights are valid. You need to leave this area immediately. I cannot do that. Then we will remove you by force. Quan Ho looked at the soldiers around him. 12 armed professionals against 1 unarmed exile. The outcome was obvious. But he thought about the eggs, about the soft chirping sounds he heard from inside them, about the lives growing in that chamber. I have money, Quan Ho said. Not much, but everything I have, take it. Just choose a different site. Yuna shook her head. The company is paying us very well. More than whatever credits you have. This is your last warning. Leave or we will make you leave. No. Yuna sighed. She nodded to her soldiers. 2 of them grabbed Quan Ho's arms. They dragged him away from the cave entrance. They took him 100 meters down the mountain and threw him onto the ice. "Stay away from the mining site," Yuna said. "If you interfere again, we are authorized to use lethal force." The security team returned to the cave entrance. They set up a perimeter. Tents and equipment appeared. They were establishing a base camp. They would be here for a while. Quan Ho returned to his shelter that night. He had hidden it in a different part of the cave system. The soldiers did not know about the tunnels. They only guarded the main entrance. He moved through the darkness using the faint glow of the crystalline walls. He reached the egg chamber. He sat beside the nest. He put his hand on one of the eggs. It was warmer now. The dragon inside was active. It bumped against the shell from within. "I will not let them hurt you," Quan Ho whispered. "I promise." He spent the night preparing. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He knew tactics. He knew how to defend a position. He had no weapons except his flare gun, but the caves themselves were a weapon. The tunnels were narrow. The crystalline walls were hard. He knew every passage. The soldiers did not. At dawn, Quan Ho began his defense. He collapsed a tunnel near the main entrance using his tools. The crash echoed through the caves. The soldiers came running. They found the tunnel blocked with rocks and crystalline debris. Yuna stared at the blockage. She turned to her soldiers. "Find another way in. There must be other entrails." But Quan Ho had already collapsed 3 other tunnels. The only way into the deep caves now was through a narrow passage he had rigged with traps. Simple traps, loose rocks balanced overhead, sections of floor that would give way. He had no explosives or weapons, so he used what he had. The first soldier to enter the trapped passage triggered a rockfall. Boulders crashed down. The soldier survived but broke his leg. His screams echoed through the caves. The others pulled him out. Yuna stood at the tunnel entrance. She spoke into the darkness. "Exile, you are only making this worse. We will get through eventually. When we do, you will be punished for injuring my soldier." Quan Ho's voice came back from deep in the tunnel. "Then you will have to come get me." The siege had begun. Yuna pulled her team back to the base camp. She contacted the mining company. They discussed options. Drilling into the mountain from another angle would take weeks. Using explosives risked collapsing the entire cave system and destroying the valuable ore. That left one choice. They had to go through Quan Ho. For 3 days, the soldiers tried different approaches. They attempted to smoke him out, but the cave system was too large and too well ventilated. They tried to wait him out, but Quan Ho had the fungus to eat and the hot spring for water. He could last longer than they expected. On the 4th day, they tried a direct assault. 6 soldiers entered the trapped tunnel with full armor and shields. Quan Ho was waiting. He had found chunks of crystalline rock that were sharp as glass. He threw them from the darkness. One hit a soldier in the gap between his helmet and chest plate. The soldier went down bleeding. The others fired their plasma rifles. But Quan Ho had already moved. He knew every hiding spot, every turn in the tunnel. The plasma bolts hit only stone and crystal. 2 more soldiers were injured in that assault. One from another rockfall trap. One from slipping on ice Quan Ho had deliberately created in a tunnel passage. Yuna pulled her team back again. She stood outside the cave and looked up at the mountain. The eggs broke open with sounds like crystal bells. 5 dragons emerged into the chamber. They were small, no larger than human children. Their scales shimmered with colors that shifted in the light. Gold and silver and bronze. Their wings were folded against their bodies, delicate and translucent. Their eyes were huge and bright with ancient intelligence. The soldiers stood frozen. They had been trained for combat, for security operations, for following orders. They had not been trained for this, for witnessing the birth of creatures that were supposed to be extinct, for watching legends become real. The largest dragon was the first to fully emerge from her egg. She was gold with veins of deeper amber running through her scales. She shook herself free of the last shell fragments and looked around the chamber. Her gaze passed over the soldiers without fear. Then she saw Quan Ho's body lying beside the nest. She moved to him on unsteady legs. Her movements were clumsy, newborn, but determined. She reached the body and lowered her head. She touched his hand with her snout. The hand was cold. Still, she made a sound. A keening cry that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient. The other 4 dragons emerged and gathered around their sister. Around Quan Ho, they formed a circle. Their cries joined together. It was not language that humans could understand with their ears. But somehow everyone in that chamber felt it. Grief, loss, recognition. What are they doing? One soldier whispered. I think they are mourning, Taewon said quietly. Yuna stepped forward slowly. She had lowered her weapon. She approached the dragons carefully. They watched her come but did not move away from Kwan Ho's body. The gold dragon, the largest one, turned her luminous eyes to Yuna. And then the dragon spoke, not with her mouth. The words appeared directly in their minds. Every person in that chamber heard her voice. It was young but carried weight beyond its years. We know what happened here. Yuna stumbled backward. You can talk. You are just born and you can talk. We are dragons. We carry the memories of our ancestors. We are born knowing. We know our history. We know what your kind did to us. We know why we were hidden, why our mother died protecting us. The gold dragon turned back to Kwan Ho's body. And we know what this human did. We felt his warmth while we grew inside our shells. We heard his voice. We felt his determination. We know he fought for us, died for us. We know he was alone and abandoned by his own kind, yet he chose to stand guard. The second dragon spoke next. This one was silver with blue highlights. Her voice in their minds was softer but no less clear. Our kind has a gift. We can read the echoes of a life, the memories left behind in blood and bone. We can see what a person truly was. All 5 dragons touched Kwan Ho's body. Their small heads bowed. Their eyes closed. Light began to emanate from them. Soft at first, then brighter. The entire chamber filled with golden luminescence, and in that light everyone saw what the dragon saw. They saw Kwan Ho as a young recruit, eager and determined. They saw him train, saw him rise through the ranks, saw him fight in battles across a dozen worlds, saw him protect colonies and civilian ships, saw him save lives again and again. They saw Colony 7, the Krell attack, the order to evacuate military personnel only. They saw Kwan Ho's face when he received that order, the conflict in his eyes, the decision he made. They saw him fly his transport back to the colony, saw him load families onto his ship, children crying, parents desperate. They saw him make 3 trips, saw him save 247 people while the colony burned around him. They saw his trial, his conviction, his exile. They saw him accept his punishment without complaint. Without regret, they saw him discover the eggs, saw his wonder, his decision to stay, to guard, to protect lives that were not his own species. They saw every moment of the siege, every injury, every trap he set, every time he could have fled and chose to stay. They saw him drag himself on broken legs toward the chamber, saw him touch the hatching dragon even as he died. They saw a life of service, of sacrifice, of choosing others over himself again and again. When the vision faded, there were tears on the faces of the soldiers. Even Yuna was wiping her eyes. Taewon had removed his helmet completely. His face was wet with tears. I did not know, Yuna said. Her voice shook. I did not know who he was, what he was. He was the best of your kind, the gold dragon said. In a species that abandoned him, he remained true. In a life of exile, he found purpose. He is what humanity should be, what it could be, but so rarely is. The silver dragon spoke again. We are 5. 5 dragons born into a universe that tried to destroy us. We should be angry. We should seek revenge. Our mother died because of humanity. Our species was hunted to near extinction. We have every reason to hate. She looked at Kwan Ho's body. But this human showed us something else.
He showed us that individuals can rise above their species.
That one person can choose differently, can be better. The third dragon spoke now. This one was bronze with copper highlights. His voice was deeper, more resonant. We are dragons. We are old, ancient. We remember things that happened before humans ever reached the stars. We remember debts. We remember honor. We remember those who show us warmth when the universe is cold. The fourth dragon, white with gold eyes, continued. This human gave us life. He gave us his life for ours. That is a debt that can never be repaid, but it can be honored. The fifth and smallest dragon, dark bronze, almost black, finished. We will not forget. Dragons never forget. Not insults, not kindness, and especially not sacrifice. The 5 dragons turned to face Yuna and her soldiers. Their young faces were solemn. Their eyes held power that made trained soldiers step backward. You came here to kill us, the gold dragon said, to destroy our eggs for mining profits. This human stood between us and you. He died for that choice. I'm sorry, Yuna said. She knelt down. She placed her weapon on the ground. I am sorry. I was following orders. But he was right. Orders can be wrong. I was wrong. The gold dragon studied her. You feel genuine regret. We sense it. You would change your choice if you could. Yes, I would. What is your name, human? Yuna. Captain Yuna. Captain Yuna. You will tell others what happened here. You will tell them about this human who gave everything. You will tell them about the choice he made, and you will tell them that dragons have returned to the galaxy. I will. I promise. Good. Because what happens next will change everything. The 5 dragons moved together. They formed a circle around Quan Ho's body. They began to glow again. This time the light was different. Not gold, but white, pure and bright. It grew until it filled the entire chamber. The soldiers had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Quan Ho's body was encased in crystal. Clear and perfect. He looked like he was sleeping. His face was peaceful. The crystal preserved him perfectly. It would not decay or fade. It would last forever. This is our first gift to him, the gold dragon said. His body will not rot. Will not be forgotten. We preserve what we value. The dragons touched the crystal with their snouts. Where they touched, golden lines appeared. They spread through the crystal like veins, like the veins that had been on their eggs. The lines formed patterns, images. They showed Quan Ho's life, his service, his choice, his last stand. This is our second gift, the silver dragon said. His story is now written in eternal crystal. Anyone who sees this will know what he did. Will know what he was. The bronze dragon spoke. And now we will give our third gift. We will take him home. Home? Yuna asked. Where? To our world. To the dragon home world that humanity took from us. We will reclaim it. And we will build him a monument there. A monument that will stand for 10,000 years. A monument that will remind every species in the galaxy what true courage looks like. The white dragon added, and we will do more. We will speak to your government, your people. We will tell them about Quan Ho, about the choice between greed and life, about the exile who was worth more than all your emperors. The dark dragon finished. Dragons are returned. We are few, but we are mighty. We will not hide anymore. We will not let our species fade. And we will make sure that this human's name becomes a word that means honor, that means sacrifice, that means choosing right even when it costs everything. The 5 dragons lifted the crystal coffin with invisible force. It floated in the air between them. They moved toward the tunnel entrance. The soldiers stepped aside quickly. Yuna followed them. What will you do now? Where will you go? The gold dragon looked back. We go to speak with your leaders, to announce our return, to change the balance of power in this galaxy. Humanity thought it was alone at the top. But dragons are back, and we remember everything. Will there be war? Taewon asked. That depends on humanity, the silver dragon said. This human showed us you can be better. If your species chooses to honor his example, there can be peace. If you choose greed and violence again, then you will face creatures that remember every wrong done to us. The dragons moved through the tunnels. The crystal coffin floated with them. They emerged from the cave into the pale light of Talvros. The surviving soldiers stood outside. They watched in shock as 5 young dragons emerged carrying a coffin made of light. The dragons spread their wings. Though they were newborn, their wings were strong. Ancient instinct told them what to do. As one, they launched into the sky. The crystal coffin rose with them. They flew toward the O. The dragons appeared in human space 3 days after leaving Talvros. They did not hide. They did not announce themselves through proper channels. They simply arrived at the capital world, 5 young dragons carrying a crystal coffin, and every sensor in the system detected them immediately. Warships scrambled. Defense stations powered up. Alarms sounded across the capital. For 200 years, humanity had been the dominant species. Now something else had entered their space. Something powerful, something that should have been extinct. The gold dragon's voice appeared in the minds of every human on the capital world. Billions of people. All at once, we are dragons. We have returned. We come in peace, but we will not be ignored. We request an audience with your government. We will wait 1 hour. After that, we will make our presence more obvious. The government scrambled. Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors argued about response options. Some wanted to attack. Some wanted to negotiate. The chaos lasted 55 minutes. Then the dragons descended. They landed on the main government plaza. right in front of the Parliament building. They set the crystal coffin down gently. Then they waited. Cameras from around the world focused on them. News broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Everyone watched. 5 dragons no larger than human children, but they radiated power. Ancient power. The kind that made people step back without knowing why. The Parliament doors opened. Officials emerged. At their head was Prime Minister Sungmin. He was an old man. He had been in politics for 40 years. He had negotiated treaties with a dozen alien species. He had faced riots and rebellions and natural disasters. But his hands shook as he approached the dragons. The gold dragon stepped forward. "I am called Bora. My siblings and I are the last dragons born in this age. We come to tell you a story. About one of your own. About an exile named Quan Ho." She touched the crystal coffin. It began to glow. Images appeared in the air above it. Holographic but more real than any technology. These were memories made solid. The life of Quan Ho played out for everyone to see. The world watched. Billions of people saw the young recruit, the decorated soldier, the hero who saved Colony 7 civilians. They saw his trial, his exile. They saw him find the dragon eggs. They saw him choose to stay, to guard, to fight. They saw the siege. Every day, every injury, every moment he could have fled and chose to stay. They saw his last stand, his broken body crawling toward the eggs, his final words, his death protecting creatures that were not his species. When the vision ended, there was silence. Across the entire world, billions of people stood in shock and shame. In awe, Prime Minister Sungmin had tears on his face. We exiled him. We threw away our best for following his conscience. We sent him to die alone on a frozen moon. Yes, Bora said. You did. Your military condemned him for saving lives. Your system punished him for being better than your orders. But he did not let exile break him. He did not let abandonment make him cruel. He found purpose in protecting us. He died so we could live. The silver dragon, who called herself Hanael, spoke next. We could hate humanity. We could seek revenge for what was done to our species. Our mother died. Our worlds were taken. We were hunted to the edge of extinction. We would be justified in anger. The Bronze Dragon Day continued. But Quan Ho showed us something else. He showed us that individuals can transcend their species, that one person choosing right matters. That honor exists even in exile. The White Dragon, Nari added. So we offer humanity a choice. You can honor his example. You can be better. You can remember what he stood for. Or you can continue as you were, choosing profit over life, orders over conscience, power over responsibility. The Dark Dragon, the smallest, who called himself Minho, finished. Choose the first path and dragons will be your allies. Choose the second and we will be your judges. We are few, but we are mighty, and we remember everything. Sungmin knelt before the dragons. What would you have us do? Bora looked at the crystal coffin. First, you will clear his name. Quan Ho was no criminal. He was a hero. His exile will be erased from records. His rank will be restored. Every honor your military has will be given to him. It will be done, Sungmin said immediately. Second, you will find those he saved. The 247 people from Colony 7. You will tell them who saved them. You will make sure they know the cost of their lives. We will. Third, you will change your laws. No one will be exiled for choosing life over orders. No soldier will be punished for protecting civilians. The military code will be rewritten. In Quan Ho's name. I will bring it before Parliament today. And finally, you will let us take him to our homeworld. We will build him a monument there. A place where all species can come to honor him. A reminder of what sacrifice means. Sungmin looked at the crystal coffin, at the peaceful face visible inside. He deserves that and more. But I ask one thing in return. Before you take him, let our people say goodbye. Let them honor him. He was ours too. He was human. Let us show that we can remember our best. Bora considered this. She looked at her siblings. They communicated silently in ways humans could not perceive. Then she nodded. 3 days. You have 3 days to honor him. Then we take him home. Those 3 days changed humanity. The crystal coffin was placed in the central plaza. Millions came to see it, to pay respects. People brought flowers, letters, drawings. Children came with their parents. Veterans came and saluted. The families he saved from Colony 7 came and wept. Someone found Commander He Jin. She had retired after exiling Quan Ho. She lived quietly on a farming world. News crews tracked her down. They asked her about the trial, about her decision. She sat before the cameras with a face full of grief. I followed orders. I did what I was told. I thought the rules mattered more than the man. I was wrong. I have been wrong every day since. If I could go back, I would tear up those orders. I would give him a medal instead of exile. But I cannot go back. I can only live with what I did. She traveled to the capital. She stood before the crystal coffin. She placed her hand on it. I am sorry, Quan Ho. I failed you. I failed what you stood for. I failed humanity. I hope somewhere you can forgive me. But I will never forgive myself. Yuna came too. She brought her whole security team. They stood before the coffin in their uniforms. Taewon stepped forward and spoke. We were sent to remove him, to clear the way for mining. We thought we were just doing our jobs, just following orders. But he showed us something else. He showed us that some things matter more than orders, more than profit, more than easy choices. He looked at his hands. I will tell my daughter about him, about the man who guarded dragons, about the exile who was braver than any of us. She will grow up knowing his name, knowing what he stood for. The mining corporation tried to issue a statement, something about regrettable circumstances and legal complications. The public outcry was immediate and fierce. Within a day, the corporation's stock crashed. Within a week, it was under investigation for ethics violations. Within a month, it ceased to exist. On the third day, the dragons returned to the plaza. Millions had gathered. The entire event was broadcast across human space, to every colony, every ship, every settlement. Billions watched. Sungmin gave a speech. He declared Quan Ho a hero of humanity. He announced the new laws, the military reforms, the posthumous honors. He declared the day of Quan Ho's death to be a holiday, a day of remembrance, a day to honor those who choose right over easy. Then the dragons took the crystal coffin. They lifted it with their power. They spread their wings. The crowd fell silent. Bora spoke one last time, her voice in everyone's minds. Humanity has been given a second chance because of this man. Do not waste it. Remember him. Remember what he chose. Remember that one person can change everything. The dragons flew into the sky. The crystal coffin rose with them, higher and higher until they were just specks against the clouds. Then they vanished, heading to their home world, to build their monument. The galaxy changed that day. Humanity was no longer alone at the top. Dragons had returned, and they watched with ancient eyes to see what humanity would become. Months passed, then years. The dragons rebuilt their home world. They found other survivors hidden across the galaxy. Their numbers grew slowly. They established themselves as a new power, not aggressive but impossible to ignore. And on their homeworld, in a place of honor visible from orbit, stood the monument. A massive statue carved from living crystal. It showed a human figure standing guard, protective, determined, eternal. Around the base were words in every galactic language. Simple words that told a truth: Quan Ho, guardian, exile, hero. He stood alone so others could live. He chose right when it cost everything. He showed his species what they could be. He showed all species what honor means. Dragons never forget warmth. We never forget guardians. We never forget debts that cannot be repaid. Thousands visited the monument every day, humans and dragons and dozens of other species. They came to see the exile who became a legend, the soldier who was cast aside and became a symbol. Parents brought children and told them the story. Teachers brought students to learn about sacrifice. Soldiers came to remember what their oaths really meant. Everyone who saw the Mon